Now it's time for you to write some of your own code using JavaScript objects. We're just going to do one quick exercise. You're going to build a movie database array. So that sounds much more complicated than it is. The idea is that you have an array called movies, and inside of that array, you have a bunch of movie objects. So it's just like the post and comments thing that we saw earlier. So a movie should have a title, that's a string, a rating, that's a number, and has watched, which is a Boolean. So that's just supposed to determine if you have seen the movie or if you haven't seen the movie. So once you define an array with 3 or 4 different movies in it, then you're going to loop through the array and print out something that looks like this. So on each line, you will either say you have watched the movie title dash the number of stars, the rating, or if has watched is false, you'll write you have not seen the movie title dash the rating. So again, you're going to have an array of movie objects. Each one has a title, rating, and has watched, which is a Boolean. Then you're going to loop through that array of movies and print out a line for each one. And that line will include if you have or haven't seen the movie, the title, and the rating. Okay, so pause the video, attempt this on your own, and then I'll be back in a few seconds to go over the answer. Okay, so let's start writing the solution. I'm going to open up the console and declare a movies array. So var movies equals an array, and then inside this array we're going to put a bunch of objects. So each movie object is going to have a title, and I'm just going to do 2 so we don't spend a lot of time here. Title, In Bruges, great movie if you haven't seen it. Has watched, that will be true for me, and rating is 5. And because this is getting a little bit long, I'm going to indent this, put every property on its own line. It's just much more readable. So we'll do one more movie, and that will be title, Frozen, which I actually haven't seen, so that's false, and rating will be 4.5. That's just going based off of what I've heard, and we'll leave our movies array at that. So 2 movies, each one has a title, a string, has watched, a Boolean, and rating, a number. So let's hit enter and take a look at our movies array. 2 objects, just like we expect. So now all we have to do is loop through this array and then print out this nice string for every movie. So I'm going to use a for each. So movies dot for each, but of course you could also easily use a for loop or whatever you prefer. So for each one, we'll give it the placeholder name of movie, and then we'll open this loop up, and all that we want to do is print out a line for each movie. So that's going to be a long console.log, and rather than do a giant console.log that has a bunch of plus signs in it, I'm actually going to make a string called result. So that's going to look like this, var results equals, and it's going to start as you have, because if you look over here, they all start with you have. So I'm going to start my string off like that, and then I'm going to have an if statement to decide what comes next. I either am going to add watched, or I'm going to add not seen. So to do that, make sure you have your space right here, and then on the next line, just have an if statement. If movie dot has watched. So if we have watched it, we're going to set result to plus equal watched with a space after it. Else, we're going to set result plus equals not seen, also with a space after it. So we're basically building this string that we're going to print at the end. So it starts off you have space, and then depending on the value of has watched for each movie, we're either going to add in or concatenate watched or not seen. Then the next step is to go ahead and add in the movie, or the title. So next we do a result plus equals, and you will see there are quotes around the title. So if we wanted to make those quotes work, we need to make sure that we have the backslash quote to escape the double quotes. So we're going to result plus equals, and then we're going to start off with our quote, So this is a little bit weird looking. And then we're going to add plus movie.title plus, and then the closing quote at the end, which we have to just do \quote. So it's a lot of quotation marks. Remember that this turns into just a double quote, and this turns into a double quote. And then let's add a space after that double quote and a dash. And then the very last thing is to add in result plus equals the number of stars. So that's going to be, we don't need quotes, movie.rating plus stars. Just like that. And then we're going to console.log results. And we end up with this here. You have watched In Bruges, 5 stars. You have not seen Frozen, 4.5 stars. And we can go ahead and add one more movie in here. Let's do title Les Miserables. Rating 3.5. And has watched, we'll set that to false. I've seen the musical, never the movie. And let's indent this just so that it's easier to read and redo this. So hit enter here and then run our code again to print things out. And we can walk through this one more time. We make a result string each time in the for loop, and we're going to slowly build that result string. So let's take the example of In Bruges. We're going to add you have space, and then if movie has watched is true, which it is, we're going to plus equals watched. So we end up with you have watched, and then the space after that. And then we plus equal in a double quote, plus the movie title, plus another movie quote. So then we have you have watched, double quote, In Bruges, and double quote, dash, with a space. And then we add in the movie rating and stars. So that movie rating is 5. So we end up with you have watched In Bruges dash 5 stars. And we print that out. You can see it works just fine. And our newly added Les Miserables shows up as you have not seen Les Miserables 3.5 stars. And that's all we needed to do. If you wanted to refactor this a little bit, what might be a good idea is to move most of the logic in here, aside from the printing, move everything out into a separate function. So I'm going to copy this and make a function called build string. And that will take a single movie object. And then inside of there, I'm going to add all this code, which takes a result variable and it slowly builds it up exactly the same. I kept it named movie so we don't have to change anything. And then the very last thing would be return result. And that's all we need there. And then we need to change our for loop a little bit. So we're going to do movies.forEach function, each movie. And for each one, what we're going to do is go ahead and run build string of movie. And to print it, we'll just run console.log build string movie. So this cleaned it up a lot. Just remember, when we run build string, we pass in each movie. This makes a string and it returns the result. So this right here is going to be replaced with whatever string is returned, and that will be printed out. And so we end up with this. So it's a little cleaner. We end up with this nice simple for each that's very clear what's happening. Print console.log build string for each movie. It makes a lot of sense. If you just look at it, you can immediately tell what it's supposed to do based off of the name. Okay, so that's it.